What is up, team? Killchain here. Let's have a look at the Mountain Thane. So to begin with, the base point that we're getting now, the reason why this base point just by picking Mountain Thane will obviously be there is because the rest of it will count as 9 points, and then the 10th point being our final form, so to speak. And there'll be 10 levels to get. So we know that this one's straight given from the get-go, and then we're starting to put points as we go down. Now, Lightning Strikes, damaging enemies, Thunderclap, Revenge, Raging Blow, or Execute. So obviously Revenge being for the protection side of things, but everything else is relevant to both except for Raging Blow, obviously. They have a 10% chance to also strike with a Lightning Bolt, dealing moderate nature damage. Cool. Numbers-wise, obviously, other people have mentioned it in their own videos as well. We don't really need to care too much about the whole numbers side of things. The 50% more during Avatar is nice. That will go to 15% instead of 10. We're going to have to assume that all these wording, this is one thing that I would love, and I guess a bit of feedback if no developer is going to watch this video. But I do plan to make a post on the feedback forums about everything that I'm touching on in this video as well. Hopefully that might get some traction, but it would be really cool if every time this sort of was done, just put in some brackets. Anytime there's like a, question about whether or not something's multiplicative or additive, just put it in brackets, right? Like you could say lightning strikes occur 50% more often during Avatar, multiplicative. And we know that clearly it's 10% multiplied by 50%, which is 15%. Because you're just adding 50% of the value, right? Cool, fine. And you'll see later there's another one that could be, is this additive or multiplicative? Multiplicative is most likely what it is. But if it was additive, suddenly it becomes busted. So yeah, we sort of need to clarify that. And it would be nice if they could just throw in some brackets, right? And just tell us which one it is. But cool. Basically, some of your abilities do some lightning damage. Cool. We don't even know what that moderate amount of nature damage is, but that's fine. We are going to path down all the different threes, then we'll have a look at the penultimate keystone ability, capstone down below. So starting on the left-hand side, we have a dual protection / fury differential, and it's the identical. It's just the added bonus of fury also gets the meat cleaver and improved whirlwind effects as well. But storm strike or nature damage in general, your abilities deal increased by 5%, so yay. All your stuff just does 5% extra damage, which will include things like Thunderclap, which is currently nature damage if I recall correctly, and Storm Strike damage ignores armor. So basically in the back of your mind, you're going Storm Strike equals ignore armor. Cool, fun. And that's obviously in and of itself going to be some nice damage there. So you'll see the Thunderclap damage is increased by 50% as well. Quite significant. Definitely puts it in comparison to things like your Whirlwind and stuff like that, a valuable asset. And especially for Fury, where if we're being incentivized to go into Thunderclap, that immediately opens up the door to things like Flood and Thunder, so you're getting rend on multiple targets as well. So potential there, we'll have a look. And you'll see the Fury version is the exact same, but it also generates some rage for us. So instead of costing rage, it generates rage. Yay, just like Prot does anyway. But more importantly, it benefits from improved Whirlwind and Meat Cleaver. So that means you'll be able to hit your Thunderclap, get your 4 stacks of Meat Cleaver, do your single target rotation on everything around you, and then that in and of itself is generating rage, so they really want to just keep Rampage as the only spender, which I think really suits how Fury works anyway, right? So you don't want to tamper with that too much. So yay, Thunderclap will generate some rage. Gives us the Meat Cleaver, we do our usual single target rotation as normal, and Bob's your uncle. Yeah, that's doing extra damage because it's increased by 50%. Doing even more damage because it's nature damage, which is slightly increased, and then you'll see the Storm Strike stuff as we go down. The next one down in this particular track is Thunder Blast. Shield Slam and Bloodthirst have a 20% chance to grant your Thunder Blast, stacking up to 2 charges. So Shield Slam, Thunderclap, or Bloodthirst, Thunderclap, right? You're getting the extra stacks of that. And Thunder Blast is just like an empowered version of Thunderclap. Conceptually, I actually love empowered abilities like the whole Bloodthirst to Bloodbath or Raging Blow to Crushing Blow kind of thing. I don't have a problem with that. Thematically, it seems really good for the Mountain Thane as well. Yeah, so yay, cool. It does probably just some sort of increased damage. But you'll also notice here that Thunder Blast counts as Storm Strike damage. So you'll see a running theme with the Storm Strike damage there. So useful, but you immediately start seeing the part, one of the major concerns. It all ties in really nicely, and I'm actually very excited for this. But if I had to make any criticism at all, and this is the first time it comes up, is you're incentivizing both Bloodthirst as well as Raging Blow. And the problem is the entirety of how what Fury Warrior functions is you either play Bloodthirst or Raging Blow. It's one build or the other. Now, it would also be safe to assume that most likely any effects that would count towards Raging Blow, so for example, your Lightning Strikes here, should in theory count towards Annihilator as well, because as you'll know, if you play Warrior, Annihilator just replaces Raging Blow, and any benefits you would typically have to Raging Blow just also apply to Annihilator. The entire specialization tree functions that way, and so it would stand to reason that most likely this will function that way as well. So you could now say that your auto attacks also have this chance to spark the Lightning Strikes. Very cool. Might even start incentivizing haste again, who knows, though typically haste is our best stat early on in an expansion anyway. But do keep that in mind, that it really seems to be pushing more towards this Bloodthirst build with Annihilator, assuming that Annihilator does get affected by the Raging Blow chances of everything that we're reading. Lastly, we have a choice node, so Steadfast as the peaks. Your Victory Rush gives you max health by 10% for 5 seconds. Really good for incoming damage, so obviously you can Victory Rush preemptively instead of just healing. I don't like that it sounds counterintuitive, because typically you might use Victory Rush after a big set of damage to help heal you back up. Otherwise, now you're also using it and almost wasting the heal, because you might be 100% health. It's supposed to heal you, but instead of healing you, it just allows you to almost overheal, essentially, and increase your health. I'm not going to lie, it's nice, it's definitely good, and it really just boils down to, is it going to compete with the Keep Your Feet on the Ground, where Thunder Blast reduces the damage you take by 4%. Now, the main issue here is Thunder Blast means you need to have the Thunder Blast up to be able to go, cool, I'm going to hold on to this Thunderclap that's empowered to make sure I hit it at the right time to stop 4% incoming damage, or whether you're just going to sit comfortably in this zone where you're like, all right, I'm Thunder Blasting commonly enough that this 4% damage reduction is almost always sort of kind of up in some capacity. It's probably going to have around a 50% uptime. I'd imagine lasting 5 seconds, you would probably typically Thunderclap every sort of 10 seconds if you were replacing your Whirlwind. So you go 4 globals, then Thunderclap again, 4 globals, Thunderclap again. You could usually probably comfortably get that every 10 seconds or so. So yeah, 50% uptime. And you could time it where in incoming raid damage, you're going to be able to go, cool, I want to make sure that 4%'s up there. Now, is 10% of your extra health, let's say, if we're sitting on 1 million health, I'm sort of just spitballing here, but we're on around, 500, 600k, maybe 700k at the moment. And assuming in the expansion that'll be increased, let's say just to make it even, we're around the 1 million health pool mark by the time the expansion comes out. And we're at max level, we've got gear, all that stuff. 10% of the max health is obviously going to be your 100k, right? And then is the 4% more than 100k? Because if it is, cool, that's clearly the obvious choice. And if it's not, then cool, you swing back to the extra health instead. Both could be used in a manner that is going to be beneficial when big raid damage is incoming and that kind of stuff. Whereas in Mythic Plus especially, you're going to see way greater uptime on Thunder Blast, reducing your damage by 4%. So most likely Mythic Plus you'll run that, and maybe in raid you'll run the Steadfast at the peaks. But it really boils down to, if I can time my Thunder Blast common enough, and it has a decent enough uptime, you're going to be able to sort of, manipulate that situation where you have the 4% damage reduction. Because if you're getting hit for 500k, then 4% of that 500k is being reduced. Does that outweigh the extra 100k of health you get? That's really just a simple maths question at that point, right? One of them is always going to be better. And I think your farm for Mythic Plus, typically Keep Your Feet in the Ground, is going to be better for just the sheer uptime that it's going to have. Now, in the central column, we've got Ground Current. Lightning Strike also deals low damage to enemies near the target. So really cool for pulls. We see Signet of Chains, for example, ripping up targets. And DK has been able to pull them in, all that kind of stuff. So any sort of that kind of manipulated positioning gameplay, you're going to be able to cleave onto some extra targets. It is low damage, so sure, we'll take it as a grain of salt, but still, we'll take it. It's a nice bit of AoE cleave, which will be handy. And you're already seeing our Fury's damage profile expand, because not only are we doing basically everything that we're doing now, but suddenly we've got Rens on everything, and our Thunderclap can be used for, instead of Whirlwind, Thunderclap's damage is being increased. Now all of a sudden we're getting these extra lightning procs, but our AoE damage profile is definitely going up from this. The choice node in the middle, Storm Shield versus Storm Bolts. I've got a lot to say about the Storm Bolts thing, and we'll touch on that after the Storm Shield. Really cool. I actually like Storm Shield intervening targets. I miss it. Obviously, other warriors have already mentioned it in their videos. Whole intervening the tank thing, it really sucks that I wish intervene could just function like they clearly have the capability of doing this, where maybe if you were in a prot spec, intervene will take the incoming damage for you, whereas if you're in DPS spec, it just reduces the damage or something like that, or in this case, does the magic shield, right? So instead of taking the melee hits and then all of a sudden, yeah, you happen to intervene the tank instead, then you shit out of luck because, all right, you're going to get meleeed and hit for 1 billion damage, so you just fall over. Now, if they could manipulate or change how intervene works for DPS warriors, beautiful. If not, you're probably going to avoid doing it on a tank as though just in case. It is quite a short range, so yes, you could intervene the tank and then just run away from him and desperately hope that you made it out of range before those melee hits will also hit you instead. But the shield alone is really cool. I like this intervene gameplay. I actually kind of miss it because typically you don't run intervene anymore. So bringing that back on the table, definitely keen for it. The Storm Bolts, on the other hand, 2 additional nearby targets. It seemed really nice originally. And the reason why this will be an example where it could be good for arms warriors is because there's really no path to get shockwave for arms warriors at the moment. Whereas we can afford to pick up shockwave now, given the current Annihilator build. You'll typically see most Fury warriors are able to path down to get shockwave. I don't like that we're doubling up on the stuns. You hit DR very quickly, and I find that AoE stuns are the most prominent CC, especially AoE CC, that's brought to the table by all the other specs in the game. Your Cap Totem, your Shadow Furies from Warlocks, your AoE Kidney Shot now. I mean, your own Shockwave if you run it as a Fury Warrior, and typically most Prot Warriors will run it as well. So I don't like being doubling up on the whole stuns thing. I don't know what that, I mean, I'm a true believer that you shouldn't just be able to just say, I don't like this and not provide a solution. My solution would be that instead of hitting 3 targets, because again, you've got no way of making sure if you've got a big pool of 8 to 10 people, sometimes 12, sometimes less, more, whatever the case may be. I find most pools in the dungeon in this current state, especially for season 3 at the moment, you're getting more than 5 targets. Like, it's quite common that most pools are beyond the 5 target mark. I'd say at least 70% of them, right? With that in mind, perhaps they could make it where any target that is affected by your Thunderclap debuff is going to be hit by your Stormbolt. So that way it still requires a bit of setup. You know, you need to be making sure your Thunderclap might only hit 5 targets, but then if you're getting a couple of Thunderclaps off, so your debuff's on as many targets as possible, then you hit your Stormbolt. Everyone affected by Thunderclap is, you know, hit with the stun from Stormbolt. The best case scenario is if we somehow manage to pull it off where maybe it made it a silence or not a blind, because that would just be bad, but maybe like an incapacitate of some sort, just something other than a stun to help reduce our own DRs. Like if you imagine you're on a particular pack and you hit Shockwave, then you hit your own AoE stun, you're kind of doubling up on stuns, and all of a sudden, as soon as a Demon Hunter does his AoE stun or Leg Sweep or a Shadow Fury or anything like that, Cap Totem, you know, you just hit your 3 stun DRs immediately, and then it's not so much about the time spent stunned, sure, you just want the interrupt for the interrupt purposes, but it is kind of a bit annoying that we're going deep down on the stun thing. And then the whole 2 additional targets, really strong probably in PvP, and we got to factor in PvP. I mean, I'm certainly not shitting on that, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this is just not a great pickup, honestly, because you have no way of controlling who it's going to get the stun on. So there could be 2 casters, you know, casting, and typically you go, cool, I'm going to do my AoE stun now to interrupt all these casters casting. But your Stormbolts happen to go on the people you don't want, and then you're shit out of luck. It's too RNG to be reliable. And that's why I thought, hey, maybe if everyone that has a Thunderclap debuff on it is the ones that get hit by the Stormbolt. But then that still runs into the issue of the whole doubling up on the DRs with Shockwave as well, or just other people's stuns themselves. So not great. I hope Stormbolts gets another look to just either make it more targets or change it away from a stun would be nice, but that's probably a pipe dream, right? Moving down, we have Thundering Clouds and Thorum's Might. Thorum's Like is friggin' hard pulling out. Like, you got to remember, everything's going to base down onto damage throughput. And just having Revenge, Raging Blow, and Execute damage increased by 15% is really no-brainer mode. Especially given that if you're pushing any form of build where you want to be rampaging a lot. So typically a Raging Blow build is heavily centered around rampaging as much as you possibly can, and you're filling the gaps with Raging Blows. Any build that is leaning more towards this whole generation of rage and then increasing the damage of your Raging Blow and execute, 15% massive. Thorum's Might seems like the clear winner here. As for the Gathering Clouds, your attacks trigger lightning strikes 15% more often, most likely multiplicative, in which case your 10% from up here goes to 11.5. That seems very small and kind of lame, I'll be honest. Again, the percentage numbers could change. I have no issue with the theme or the concept behind the choice node here. But yeah, kind of a bit of a swing and a miss in my opinion. I think if it was additive, it probably become too powerful, because you can imagine Lightning Strikes has a now 25% chance per hit or whatever. In AoE, if you're thunderclapping 5 targets, you're pretty much all guaranteed to be getting a lightning strike on one of them every time you thunderclap. And if they're all bunched up, that's cleaving multiple times. That's probably a bit too overkill, sure. So I understand why it might sort of have to be multiplicative and not additive. But Thorum's Might's really doing a lot of heavy lifting here, because 15% is very large to, just saying. Now, as for the right-hand side, Shield Slam damage increased by 20%, and then your Bloodthirst and Rampage increased by 10%. Just flat-out damage buff. Yay, sure. I mean, we'll take it. It's going to be a clear passive. We get all these points anyway, so yeah, cool. We'll take it. Now, here's the part where, once again, though, I have my problem. So much is incentivized towards this Bloodthirst, and then you've got different things throughout where increasing the damage of Raging Blow. Now, again, it is safe to assume that most likely Annihilator will affect anything affecting Raging Blow will also affect Annihilator, like I mentioned. But this really does push you towards an Annihilator build every single time without fail, because the only way to get both the benefit of a Bloodthirst and Raging Blow is by having the Annihilator build. So that way Annihilator covers all the bonuses to the Raging Blow, and then you still use Bloodthirst on the regular. Whereas in a Raging Blow build where you don't run Annihilator, and it was back in our old Season 1 and 2 build where we were all about the Rampage and Raging Blow, you never touch Bloodthirst. Like, literally it was used purely as a defensive, or if you really, really ran out of Raging Blow charges, which was very difficult to do. But sometimes RNG didn't favor you and you had to throw in a Bloodthirst every so often. But all these little Bloodthirst increasing nodes really are falling to the wayside due to the fact that yeah, you're just never going to hit Bloodthirst, except for defensively whenever you have Enrage regen up. Bit of a shame, but I find that this particular build is really shifting towards that Annihilator build. And again, that could conflict with different tier sets as they come down. We don't know what the next tier set's going to be, so who knows. Our next choice node, we've got Flashing Skies and Valajar Training. So the Flashing Skies chance for the lightning strike, to critically hit is increased by 5%, and their crit damage is increased by 10%. Really cool. Bit of a annoying situation with the current tier set. Although we do have talents like, if I bring over this particular one real quick, we have talents like Blood Craze, you can see here, where this will de-incentivize crit chance as a secondary stat, because you just naturally build up crit chance over time if you're running a Bloodthirst build. Whereas ultimately that's not too bad, because again, especially at the start of the expansion, crit can often be quite valuable. So this will definitely incentivize running crit chance here, because yeah, more crits, more crit damage, happy days. And then Valajar Training, Lightning Strikes reduce the cooldowns of Ravager. Once again, as soon as you see that choice node, that immediately makes me want to go back to the old Ravager days where you will run the new Anger Management. So you can see Anger Management will reduce the cooldown of both Recklessness and Ravager. That funneling into your Lightning Strikes also reducing Ravager. It could just be absolutely nutty, and you're getting what was already around 45-second Ravager cooldowns, maybe 40 seconds. That could be reduced even further to, say, maybe 30-second Ravager. I don't like how they will desync each other, because then Recklessness doesn't benefit from that. That's probably going to be out of sync with normal Ravager, because you're getting extra CDR on Ravager. So you're pretty much all going to be ravaging a lot and then recklessing a little bit less than a lot. And then your avatar would be on a strict 1.5. Like, it's definitely going to desync, but you're just going to send cooldowns as soon as they come up. That's probably going to be the better option here. It really depends on how often you're getting these lightning strikes, because the crit damage is definitely nice if you're able to AoE cleave some crit damage for free lightning strikes. Thematically, this is all great, by the way. I have no issue with the theme of basically being Lightning King on Mountain Doomhammer guy, like, yeah, bring it on. I'm definitely keen for it. Lastly, the burst of power. Lightning strikes have a 20% chance to make your next 2 shield slams or 2 bloodthirsts have no cooldown. Again, yay. Really good for prot. Question mark face for fury, because shield slams are obviously exceptionally core and really powerful for protection warrior. It's literally your bread and butter, right? You're going to be hitting it on cooldown, and then having no cooldown means, yeah, happy days, you're smashing it. But again, bloodthirst having no cooldown is really cool, sort of. If you ran a bloodthirst build, you're already doing it every second cooldown anyway. If you're running a bloodthirst build as well, you're typically running Reckless Abandon with said bloodthirst build, which means you actually want to throw in a rampage between each bloodthirst. So what's the point of having no cooldown on bloodthirst if you didn't have that problem with deft experience, because you just meant you did the thing? Now, does that mean we run the full Raging Blow build, but every time we have the Thunder Blast procced, because you want to stack it up 2 times, right? You could say that as soon as you get the Lightning Strike 20% chance thing, which already has a low chance to even Lightning Strike in the first place, right? But you could have a week or a track whenever you get this free 2 Bloodthirst thing. You hit Bloodthirst twice, and that will then turn your Thunder Clap into a Thunder Blast. Because you can see Shield Slam and Bloodthirst will have a 20% chance to grant your Thunder Blast, stacking up to 2 charges, right? So you're using that 2 freebies to try and fish for the 2 stacks of the Thunder Blast thing. Maybe that's the sort of gameplay that they're going for, but again, it really feels like we're going 2 opposite directions, where they're trying to both incentivize Raging Blow as well as a Bloodthirst build. And the only way to make that work is if you just run Annihilator and hope that all the Raging Blow stuff affects Annihilator as well. So that's the part that I'm having a problem with. Because once again, even this, if you're running a Bloodthirst focus build with Annihilator, we don't care about making Bloodthirst have no cooldown, because even if it did have no cooldown, you're going to be running Reckless Abandon, which means you need to be reaving 1 for 1. Rampage, Bloodthirst, Rampage, Bloodthirst, Rampage, Bloodthirst. So you don't want 2 Bloodthirst with no cooldown, because you have no problem with no cooldown, because Deft Experience makes it every second global anyway, which is what you want to do. So yeah, that's the part that I'm having a problem with. If you play a warrior, you'll totally understand where I'm coming from. Lastly, the Avatar of Storm, though, grants your casting the Avatar, grants you the 2 charges of Thunder Blast. Yay, it resets your Thunderclap cooldown as well, which is really cool. You know that you're going to be able to, yeah, just become this lightning fiend, basically, as soon as you hit Avatar. And then while it's not active, though, your Lightning Strikes have a 10% chance to grant you Avatar. Really like that, you know, proc gameplay. It's going to be a bit annoying, because, yeah, sure, sometimes you might have a particular encounter where you got unlucky and you didn't proc it that many times, but alternatively, you might have that one god run where you procced it heaps and you just feel like an absolute champion. So the only qualms that I have is the incentive of these both push-pull between like both the warrior fury playstyles, so to speak, because you either go full right tree for Raging Blow or full left tree for Bloodthirst, and it's like they're trying to incentivize both at once. And it's the same issues that we've always had, right? Like, as soon as one becomes numerically better than the other one, you just completely forget about the other ability, being Raging Blow or Bloodthirst. And that's the way it is now, right? To the point where Annihilator literally just replaces Raging Blow anyway, so it doesn't matter. But really cool capstone. I do like it. I think the Avatar procs is really cool. I did also have a moment where I was like, oh my god, this is going to be crazy, because in my head, I was like, these free Avatar procs might also cause the Berserker's Torment and give us Recklessness as well. But you will see there, the wording's very specific. It says, activating Avatar will grant the Recklessness or the other version. Whereas our own version of that with Unbridled Ferocity, I don't think your little 4-second of Recklessness also gives Avatar. Because that's clearly what it states in the Berserker's Torment, right? Activating Recklessness will cast the other one, so Avatar reduced effectiveness. Whenever we get Unbridled Ferocity procs, we don't get that. So I think for that reason, it's safe to assume that this would function the same. Unfortunately, we can't fish for these insane links of both Recklessness and Avatar proccing Recklessness and Avatar again. That would be fucking bonkers. Because, yeah, that'll just break the game, right? Because your Rampages and Onslaughts will have a chance to grant Recklessness, which also gives you Avatar. And then Avatar proccing from this little Avatar of the Storm thing will then give you Recklessness. Yeah, it could be crazy. But unfortunately, that's a pipe dream. There's no way they'll do that. So all in all, very cool. Thematically on point. I definitely keen, and I know that AoE wise, and even single target to a degree, but AoE wise, everything is being elevated, and I love that they had the foresight to give us, to give us the fact that the improved Whirlwind and Meat Cleaver will also work with Thunderclap. Very important. I'm glad they did that. But yeah, the only two concerns is Stormbolt's bad, don't like it, and then the split between, trying to incentivize both Raging Blow and Bloodthirst is a bit of a problem. But overall, definitely well worth keeping an eye on. I'm very excited to see, Slayer and Colossus as well. But let me know what you guys think. Thanks very much for watching, and more videos to come. We've got a lot to go over. War Within is getting close. I can't wait. Peace.